When considering the fights in Berserk, none comes close to the ferocity, the unhinged madness, and overall perfection of Rosine vs. Guts. Since I first picked up Berserk, the Rosine fight blasted itself up to my number 1 spot, and whilst has been challenged here and there by fights like Berserker Guts vs Grumbeld and the Guts vs Griffith rematch, remained fairly stable in that number 1 spot, and dare I say forevermore, as our noble Miura has passed on. Now, I am sure as a Berserk fan you've seen the incredible animation by Reymer that brings the Rosine fight to the animated screen, and whilst it serves as a nice visualization, the manga does it best, as with most cases. Ages ago I ranked fights in Berserk, so I'll let younger me spit some flames as a quick summary as to the fight's appeal.
My favourite fight within Berserk is Guts vs Rosine. The thing I love about this fight the most is the presentation of Guts. He is so raw and animalistic while striking fear as some ominous figure within the flames, like an apex predator waiting for his time to strike. The monstrous nature of Guts creates a sense of nuance within who to root for, and of course we all stayed on Guts' side, but we can understand Jill's perception when she said, for an instant swaying inside the blaze, he was the one who looked more like a terrifying monster to me. That line coupled with the flame-drenched Guts gave me chills the first, second and third time of rereading, and Miura's artwork once again amazes me.
Get a real microphone, you stupid nerd. The interesting part of this fight is that the final showdown itself is not the sole factor that draws me in, but the Lost Children chapter is one of the darkest ever plots I've read and deals with a plethora of important and often neglected issues that faces society, mainly the loss of childhood innocence, abuse from guardians and parents, alienation from family, and desperation to find somewhere in which you belong due to the trauma one received whilst growing up. Miura uses 3 characters to express this: Guts, Rosine and Jill, helped along by the essence of PCAF as well, and the 3 harbour different morals, experiences and wishes for the future. Whilst Guts is not a lost child in the conventional sense, his character certainly was originally, born from a literal corpse and thrown into a world with nothing but a sword, and is still lost to this day due to a lack of stability whilst growing up. Jill is introduced as a girl of innocent optimism, despite the continual abuse she receives from a deadbeat father and lack of protection from a submissive mother. I see the relationship between Jill and Rosine to be one of a cracked mirror. Rosine was abused as well, to the point she sacrificed her mother and father to escape the hellscape she felt entrapped within. Her being a small child at the time of ascension to demonkind makes her the hardest apostle in the entire manga to condemn as pure evil, as she was quite literally in Jill's position and one many readers can relate to. Rosine was so fixated on that fantasy world she constructed as a form of withdrawal from the life she hated so much that her entire apostle is a philosophy hinged on that facade of childhood innocence, her speech childish, her thoughts childish, a lack of acceptance of what is, and a desire to forcibly make something that isn't. This is mainly expressed in her psychotic kidnapping of children, mutating them into disgusting pseudo-apostles that, whilst appear elfish, show a much darker and vicious side later on. Rosine brutally slaughters parents and older people during her attacks, and while some may deserve it, she is hardly questioning them in a court of law. And this is where her childlike innocence wears off, and we can begin to condemn her as a murdering demon that Guts must vanquish for the good of the realm. But Guts himself is not exactly a hero, not at all a provider of justice to the innocent and weak. He himself is on a selfish quest as well, having abandoned Casca in pursuit of Griffith for his childish desire for revenge. Consequences eventually arise for this, and one of the greatest passages in fiction ever with Godo about his inability to accept what is and to continue running from reality, and in many ways reflects Rosine's mentality as well. So Miura pushes forth 2 morally reprehensible characters, Guts, an unruly recluse who has no issue with using children as hostages, seemingly unbound by any humanity, obsessed with killing off demons to fuel his pursuit of revenge, having abandoned the incapable love of his life, and Rosine, a young girl who plays pretend at being an elf, slaughtering innocent parents to steal their kids to become monsters like her. And surprisingly, they fucking hate each other. Whilst initially Rosine treats it all as a playtime, as do the other pseudo-elf kids, the dark aspects quickly blossom, primarily with the harrowing imagery of the burning corpses of children in the barn after they died, transforming back. Guts feels no remorse for them, which can be expected. Everything he's ever loved, emotionally invested, cared for, has been stripped away from him and punished him countless times in visceral and violent ways, so rejecting empathy is something he tries to do often. Guts in the Black Swordsman arc was edgy, but in this chapter, which chronologically takes place just after that arc, he is deranged, psychotic, lost and monstrous. Fighting burning demonic dead babies envelops him in that madness, cackling with laughter at where his life has led him. The art is so raw, it makes us as readers uncomfortable as we are watching Guts practically decimate confused and lost children. We feel both empathy for him and the children, meaning there is no real side we can root for. But even with Guts' deranged disconnectedness, there are multiple instances where he holds back or opts to protect Jill when she is in danger, fleeting signs that deep down a kind soul still exists, just shrouded by the darkness he chooses to hide in. This isn't really meant to be a full analysis of the Lost Children chapter, however, so let's get back to the fight. The undercard to the main event is just as tasty, Guts versus more pseudo creatures who are grossly bug-like. There's a lot of moves that Guts uses that really expresses how accustomed he is to fighting demonic entities and inhuman opponents, alongside the mastery of Dragon Slayer that no man could wield. A front flip neatly avoids a pincer attack while simultaneously finishing both bugs off, but Guts is unable to aura farm just yet as the remaining creatures approach spookily, all with their dinglings hanging out. One thing I did notice is that most creatures that are also naked are not depicted with genitalia throughout the manga, so why Miura chose to specify them so heavily during Lost Children is perhaps subliminal messaging of sexual abuse that children receive, often going unspoken about due to fear of consequences from the child or lack of support structure in place. Nearing the end of the fight, Guts is bloodied up, reaching that psychotic state in which he prefers during fighting, but the final enemies are slightly stronger than the rest, catching him off guard with their speed and raw strength. To counter their higher stats, he pulls off a beautiful move that got the applause of everyone reading, I'm sure, utilizing the blasting kick of his arm cannon to maul through both bugs.
Fucking try any of that shit, because I've been here before. I'm a professional. This is what I do.
The fighting art during this chapter is so clean and perfectly shows what is going on with dramatic effect. Back in the Misty Valley, the most horrendous moment of the entire manga occurs for me, with the children engaging in a play fight, happily massacring each other whilst painted in ecstasy. It's a shocking event showing how Rosine's transformations twist the children on a fundamental scale, with pure evil switching in for their childlike whimsy and innocence exhibited from Jill's reaction. The imagery, lighting, distinct lack of remorse is so inhumane and unsettling, and does bring into question the experiences of Miura throughout his own life for the need or inspiration to include this scene. The fight is topped with an even worse finish as one wasp kid engages in an adult attack, which is, yeah, what you think, killing the other with a pointed stinger. The mask has entirely slipped now for Rosine, who darkly manipulates Jill into becoming a disgusting spawn just like all of them. But thankfully, our Dark Knight finally shows himself, setting the cocoons containing the children alight, face cast in cold and uncaring disposition. The wolf has entered the wasp's nest. Rosine sends forth her troops, who are swiftly dealt with by Guts in a swiping motion, scorching all of them within flames whilst blowing out like a demonic entity himself. One of the coldest panels of the manga is narrated by Jill, calling Guts a terrifying monster swaying inside the blaze. He is one to be not just feared, but terrified of. Not done with the little ones yet, he expertly uses the giant sword as a fly swatter, crushing them before as many more swarm him, but Guts only smiles in a psychotic way, charging into the flames himself to scorch the rest. Maximizing his killing output after burning the wasps to crispy crunches, Guts takes out another cocoon using the liquids to put the fire on himself out. Talk about efficiency. Many times Rosine questions if Guts is truly a human, as he appears more like a bestial entity, blood, guts, and remains slathering his face and body, the wolf indulging in the nest's juices with zero remorse for their identities. This truly is my favourite version of Guts. Even if he is more flawed here than later, there is something so attractive about his release of empathy, his commitment to his task, and the demented way he goes about this. Disgusted by the nest's reward, he spits the twisted and half-transformed child out of his mouth, eyes white in utter indulgence of violence, gone from humanity for a bit. Jill continues to narrate his deranged and ferocious state, and Rosine, pissed off with his unbreakability, finally engages herself. Guts, however, proves to be a master of environment manipulation, learning from their last encounter that her speed is her main form of attack, and has created this turbulent environment to counteract both her dust particles and ability to move swiftly, giving him a much wider opening to attack. She does manage to evade his attack, however, at the cost of not being able to attack herself, which prompts her final transformation into full apostle state, Guts pushing her further than any have before. Gone is any resemblance to an elf. Here is a grotesque giant, much like Kafka's beetle in Metamorphosis. She is gross and spears forth at Guts, her speed increased further. Her blasting power is overwhelming for Guts as she rushes through destroying her own cocoons, giving up on their reliability, deciding to live on her own is all she needs to be happy, as she has wings and can go anywhere, still equipped with that childish mentality. Guts is launched off his feet from her stinger's impact, stating he literally cannot see her attack due to her speed. Perhaps this is due to his missing eye, as without both eyes, perception and viewing distance is significantly disabled, but it is implied Rosine reaches supersonic levels from the deafening booms that follow her attacks. Guts ponders briefly, wondering how to stop her attacks from bashing him about with no resistance, as Rosine commits to slowing down to improve her own accuracy, looking alien and ugly. This gives a perfect opportunity for Guts to stop her attack by getting hit. Yes, he is fighting like a monster, but his battle intelligence is also superior to every single opponent he faces, except maybe Zod, with this fight being a prime candidate for his smartest moments, and Rosine completely pierces his arm right through bone and flesh, deflected from his skull with his metal prosthetic, which was the price to close the distance. Guts and Pain are best friends at this point in life, meaning his tolerance threshold is practically untouchable. Rosine launches upwards, playfully flirting with Guts as she believes the fight is completely in her weird little talons. It shows a lack of seriousness. Guts is literally trying to murder her. There's death all around them, her own minions who are stolen children burning to crisps down below, but she just doesn't care. It expresses not only the immaturity but detachment from humanity and empathy, focusing on the selfishness of apostlehood. Her prancing about the finishing blow is what seals her fate, lowering her guard as Guts seems to be struggling in consciousness, but shocks her as he unleashes the arm cannon on her main torso. After obliterating her lower half, the two plummet in the starry night sky, the human who pretends to be a demon and the demon who pretends to be an elf. Funnily enough, Guts once again expresses concerns that he missed the killing blow, which alludes to his own mixed feelings with Rosine, as she is still a child and not inherently sadistic, self-indulgent monster. She simply tried running from her problems and caught the attention of a greater evil. But this is not something Guts can allow himself to feel. Sympathy, regret, guilt, and blacks it all out, taking his urge to kill and forfeiting all other human emotions. In the growing fire, he sees Jill, and rather than saving her himself, decides to use the young girl as bait for Rosine to get an opening. It is rather dark considering there's no guarantee of Jill's safety, but the plan works, all whilst the beast glares through an eye of utter hatred, waiting for his chance. As expected, Rosine saves Jill, but Guts is quick on the uptake, this time sparing no space for thought, completely piercing Rosine through the back with Dragon Slayer, flying through the fire like a hell-sent hound. Jill meanwhile is having a brilliant time with the other kids, clearly laughing in a healthy way as shown through her warm smile and lively eyes. Once again in the air, Guts lectures Rosine on why he was the consequence sent by humanity's wrath for the role she has played in the past. Rosine did attend the eclipse most likely, as she was a distinct character in the festival's eve all those chapters ago. She terrorized Rickard there, ordering her pseudo-apostles to massacre the band. She snacked, devoured, and played with humans after her rise to demonhood, and that is something Guts will never forgive, regardless of the prior circumstances. She flings Guts off, screaming obscenities about her superiority as an elf compared to lowly humans, showing once again her twisted mentality, as she is nothing more than a cold-hearted demon of evil. Thinking she finally gets the killing blow, she laughs maniacally, but we all know Guts is too cool to go out in such a simple way. Once again, using her offense as defense, he allows the spear to pierce both sides of his mouth, blood spraying everywhere, whitened eyes fueled purely by a raging fury and a desire to achieve his goal, physically unable to give up. This tenacity terrifies Rosine, this wraith who reeks of death, using any means possible to kill her. Using the full power of Dragon Slayer one final time, he shreds right down into the head top of her apostle form, one of the bloodiest battles ever, both sides completely ruined. Due to his human limitations, Guts is always pushed extensively during Conviction and Black Swordsman, his body a feast of wounds that slowly deteriorates his ability to function. He crashes into the depths of a river, almost completely spent, as Rosine autopilots to a crash zone as a flashback montage plays, Miura trying to squeeze any sympathy he can out of her weird bug form. Admittedly, it is quite a bittersweet moment. She does possess some innocence, her abusive father the sole cause of her downfall, mixed with the desire to escape, which is what the entire Lost Children chapter is about. Jill flexes on Rosine how she found an actual elf in like a few days compared to Rosine dedicating years to roleplaying one, which if I was Rosine I'd be pissed, but she's more occupied with dying. This Guts guy is not done yet, erupting from the water's surface like a wounded animal still pumped by bloodlust. There is no going back at this point. To give up is to go back, so to finish the job is the only option. Demons must die. Under the support of a dark, eerie sky and with a backdrop of a blazing forest, blame Guts for global warming, not the God Hand, appears with his face in darkness, dragging his sword along the floor due to utter exhaustion. Miura blacks his face out to emphasize the lack of humanity in his fight, and Guts stalks down his prey, smacking a helpless Jill out the way. Now, a point of heated debate. Did Jill make Guts hesitate? Yes, I think. Maybe just a split second, and maybe Guts decided to just end Jill as well, but it was hesitation enough for sure. There was enough time for him to swing after, but the bolt from Jill's father depletes the remainder of his strength, and he is forced to flee before the Holy Iron Chain Knights catch him. I noticed this comment at the end of the chapter, and whilst I'm fine with Rosine's analysis, this person mischaracterizes Guts on a molecular level. Holy hell, man. When you are trying to make a point about who our sympathy should lie with, you cannot just change the character to fit your narrative. This implies Guts, like Rosine, slaughters innocent people, when in fact he fought other mercenary groups and people who also took pleasure in warfare, never innocent parents who Rosine labelled as all bad entirely and therefore evil. Guts was also abused and had no love from parental figures, but Rosine is the one playfully killing innocents and animals, and in fact her own soldiers. But whatever. This fight is truly amazing, both sides having emotional weight in their convictions. There is something special about this era of the art, so stunning, sharp, bestial, dark, gory, bloody, and just enough edge to create panels that gas the readers up, alongside the storytelling elements that I adore about this area of Berserk's story. The representation of Guts' inner demons, his chaotic but also tactical fighting style, really inspired the idea that when it comes to demons, he is by far a match for them. But that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that big ass subscribe button, and until the next one, peace out.